If you want to try to create an app with me, I'm going to use ChatGPT, just the free version, and I'm going to try creating a student schedule visualization web application, which sounds complicated, but based on how much Python we learned today, I think it should be doable. So first, I'm going to pull up this AI prompting with Clear kind of tip sheet. And maybe that doesn't display super good, to get some ideas about how we can structure our prompt. So here's what I was looking for, a good kind of sample template. This is going to help me structure my prompt that I'm going to use to get started. So in your Goldlink, if you go to student and you go to your registration tools, kind of in the middle, you should have a student detailed schedule. I can't use that, but I have the same thing as faculty detail schedule. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start copying. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to build up a spreadsheet from this. So let me paste this without formatting. And see how these skills are connecting. This is why we expose you to Excel, so you can be able to use it and integrate it. And I'm going to copy these different things. So imagine these are your classes for the semester. And I'll stop at 3 because I think you get the point after that. So imagine these are my classes for the semester. I'm going to save this as a CSV or comma separated values file. So I'm going to say my fall, say classes.csv. I'll just put that on my desktop for now. And I'm going to change it I'm going to change it to this, comma separated values. Click save. And now if I actually open this as a text file, what you're going to see, right click, open with Notepad, is this is actually what the raw file looks like in text. So when we use the split function, this is what I'm talking about. When Python reads this in, it has to split these up by commas so that it can store this data in an organized way. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to use this in my initial prompt. So I'm going to prompt the AI to hopefully create this program mostly for me, so I don't have to do much work. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this template and develop that prompt. So I need to create a simple student schedule dashboard, and I'm going to add this, a simple web-based, because I want it to be easy for me to run in just a web browser. So a simple web-based student schedule dashboard for me to conveniently visualize my scheduled classes. The output, so first I want to explain the process. So, and this is kind of where the example part of the prompt comes in. I want to be able to feed my schedule in, or maybe I should use the word instead of feed, import my schedule in from a CSV file formatted like this. And this is where I'm going to put an example. And the way I'm adding, the way I'm breaking into new lines here without submitting it is instead of hitting enter, I'm pressing shift enter on my keyboard. And I'm going to copy this So remember, if I copy it like this, this will probably also work, but some AI chat prompts, I can't talk. Some AI input text boxes, when you copy straight from Excel, they don't work well. ChatGPT, I think, does, but I just want to show you that you can just right click on this and open with something else. So on Mac, you can open with text edit, and that way you get like the raw file. Whoops. And then I can copy this. So I'm telling it, this is how my CSV file is formatted right here. And I can enclose this. Well, that's fine. Okay. So I'm telling it how it needs to be able to read in this. And then I might give an example of the output. This should output 3 different events on the dashboard screen. A class on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Okay, so this is a pretty good prompt. Now I'm going to add a little bit to this. Well, first of all, we learned what? We learned Python. So I'm going to put a few app constraints. Design this to be very simple. I am a new programmer. A new Python programmer. I'm going to say additional instructions, maybe. So sometimes AI will go crazy and it'll make you really elaborate stuff. That's just going to be hard to implement if we're new at coding. So let's keep it simple. Let's say, please provide instructions for how to implement the code, how to, let's say, set up and implement the code, including instructions for how to do any installation steps. All right, and let's see what we get. So it's telling me that it's using several technologies. It's using Python. It's using Flask, which is a Python-based web framework. And I'm glad it's using that because it is a simple one to implement. And it's using HTML, which you learned about in web. And then JavaScript is another coding language. And it might be used a little bit in our HTML file to help it make a more dynamic display. But we haven't even learned JavaScript, and we shouldn't need to know it. ChatGPT should give this to us. So let's follow these instructions very carefully. So if you got stuck on step 1 and you're like, okay, I see this, but I don't know what you mean here. Well, you can always ask it for more detail. Hey, I don't quite know what you mean about install Flask on step 1 here. How do I do that? What is this thing called Flask? And you can get even more detail from it. But I'll go ahead and show you how to get this started. So it will help if you install this free app called Visual Studio Code. So if I search Visual Studio Code, there are downloads for Windows, Mac, and Linux. So runs on everything. I already have it installed. I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to follow along very specifically what it tells me. So the first thing it says is create a folder. Okay, so to do that, I'll say File, and I'm going to say looks like I don't have an option to create a folder in the app itself. So I'm going to find a spot. Everything's a mess here, so why not just throw it on the desktop? So I press Control-Shift-N, and I'm going to name this, whoops, let me rename this. It says student schedule, or schedule, depending on how you say that, dashboard. And so I'm going to try to follow exactly the way these are named so that it's easier to implement this all. So I have this empty folder, and this is where my app files are going to go. So to open this in VS Code, I'm going to go to File, Open Folder, and then I put that in my desktop. So it should be somewhere in here, and it's right there at the top. Click Select, and then if you get this, yes, you trust yourself, so, or you don't, but just click it anyway. And there we go. Close this Copilot thing, because we're already using AI, so we're good. And now we're going to create these files exactly like it says. So this is showing you the folder structure to use. And it's very important that we set it up exactly like this, because as long as we follow its instructions, it should be easy to get this set up. So what I'm going to do is click on this button to create a new file, and I'm going to name this app.py. Okay, so there's the first thing, check. So now if I look at this in a different view, okay, there's the folder. Now I just have app.py there, right? So that's my first file. Then it says create this folder named templates. And this is where our HTML, our web pages go. So I'm going to then right click on this. So this is another folder. So now if I look in here, what I have, hello, where's my folder at? Now you see I have this folder created, right? So you can see where I'm going with this. And now I'm going to right click on this and say new file. So inside the templates folder is going to be this file, index.html. Make sure you type the file extensions, those are important. And then I'm going to create this folder called static. Static, what does that mean? Well, files, static files are what we call things like images, things like style sheets. So we talked about CSS and how that makes our website styled. In this case, it looks like the only thing we have is a JavaScript file in there. I'm going to say new file, script.js. And your ChatGPT may have given you a slightly different set of files, because it's not always going to be the same. But it's probably going to be similar if your prompt was similar to mine. You might actually have an external CSS file. This might be named program.py. It might not be exactly the same. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to start filling in my files. So paste, and look at this. So we know what the split function does, right? And this is actually a compressed way of it writing a for loop. So this is another way I could write this same for loop is for t in time range dot split start time equals 4t in time range. Now I'm trying to think about this. Oh, okay. Yeah, so this is very compressed. 4t in time range split time equals that. Start time equals So it's like, that was a much more manual way to write that out. So you can see this is very compressed Python syntax that I didn't teach you, because until you're more advanced at programming, this is like, it's hard to interpret and understand. But this is our Python code, okay? And then this is our web code. So you can see the general structure here. I'm going to copy and paste that in our index.html file. And each time to save it, I'm pressing Control S, or you can go to File, Save. Every time you make a change, you're going to have to save it. And then it says we have something. Where's the script? So I don't think there is anything in script.js, so we probably didn't even need that. But we could ask it a clarifying question. So use this to test. In your terminal, run it like this. Then go to, this is the URL we put in our web browser, and it says we can upload our file. All right, let's try this out. So I have these two files saved. Now, how do I get this set up? So if you go, and if you're doing this on your own, you can always ask this thing for more detail. So I'm going to go to View, I'm going to go to Terminal, New Terminal, and it should already be inside the folder that I need to be in here. And it says, how does it say to run it? It says type python app.py. Let's try it. Python app.py. Now you do have to have Python installed for this to work. So if you need to know how do I install Python here, I have reorganized this content in the lecture section. Your instructions for the in-class activity, if you're finishing that up, they're still there. I just compressed this, so they're actually in the Dropbox. So same place you go to submit your work, the instructions are up at the top there. And I've created this link where you can get more information. And so this Get Started guide, this will tell you how you can install Python and kind of get started. And so you do need to have Python installed on your computer to run this. And then I should be able to just do this. Okay, but here's the problem. It might give you an error that says Flask is not found or something like that. You have to type pip install Flask. And I just know this because I've done it. If you get an error and you can't figure it out, tell ChatGPT and see if it can help you figure that out. So by typing this, this is Python's package managing tool. And so it installs this Flask web framework. So now I can run this. So now if I type python app.py, it says running on this. So if I copy this, and this is in line with what ChatGPT told me, right? So I can paste this in a web browser. Oh, and that's actually, I think I've got this already running. So I need to stop that code. That was a different project. There we go. And look at that. So I already have the basis, I already have this created for me. Now I should be able to import that file I created from my class schedule. So I'm going to click Choose File. And I'm trying to remember where I saved that. On the desktop, classes.csv. I'm going to go ahead and move this somewhere so it doesn't get lost. I'm going to go ahead and just drag it and drop it in my project folder. And I'm going to click on this again. And now I know that everything's in here. Okay. And then I should be able to click Upload. And look at that. So in literally a few minutes, I've created a very simple desktop app. It's kind of plain looking. Let's ask it if it can stylize this. And let's ask it if it can even show this on maybe like show time on a y-axis, so it can kind of lay this out like a Google Calendar view. So I'm going to say, great, I got that working well, it works correctly. If it didn't work correctly, I would tell it it doesn't read my file correctly, but it does. And now I'm going to say, now I want to stylize this more. I would like for it to vertically show a time range from, let's say, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on the screen, and place my events vertically where they align with what time it is. Maybe not the most elegant way of phrasing that, but I think this is good enough. I think it will work. Also, I would like some pretty accent colors. I want a fresh, minty, let's say, modern theme. Think minimal, mint green, Google Calendar week. Let's say in week view. And let's just see what we get. So it's going to convert this into more of like a grid display. And I think this will be a better way to display some information. It's importing a Google font so that it can give us a nice modern typeface to use, the Enter one. And it's creating some pretty CSS style rules for us. And you can see this takes a lot more code, obviously, because we're making it a lot more complex, but it's going to give us a better end product. And this is the approach I use when I build up entire apps like this web dashboard that I created. Let me show you this. I've got to stop running this other one. This was just more prompting and more iteration and more customization. I started from literally students' work. So students created the base of what I created here from something like this. That was my starting point. And so I'm walking through the same process with you to show you how you can make your own apps. And so now I can delete all this, paste it, Control S to save. And let's see, that's cool. It didn't even change any of my Python code. If it said, if it gave me a new app.py replacement, some new Python code, I would probably put that there, unless it told me to make a second Python file. So I'm just literally following its instructions. And let's see how it looks. Let's refresh. And look at that. Now, let's see if it still works. Brilliant. And now you have a complete app that you could use this every semester to visualize your class events. So I could take a screenshot and I could copy this. I could paste this in a Word document. And I could go print this out, and then I have a nice visual calendar that I can carry around with me. So very practical things that you can make for yourself just based on literally one day of a programming class. along with these other literacies. So your exposure to web literacy, your ability to use tools like Visual Studio Code, and just using kind of your clear prompting literacy, and even your information literacy, being able to do your own research to figure out, how do I run this? How do I set this up? How do I, do this whole thing? And you can create so many things, guys. So I just wanted to put this out there to give you ideas and to show you that what you learned today is really powerful, because every job is full of automation, but there's so much workflow automation that people like you are creating every day in their jobs, not necessarily as programmers, but as people who need to simplify tasks. So when I submit an email travel request and I need to attach a form showing, the details and have all these specific criteria, it's easier to create workflow automation with something like Power BI if you understand programming and you've practiced thinking this way step by step by step. Even though Power BI is all drag and drop and you don't actually have to write code, you still have to know if this person approves it, then we send it to the next person. Else, we email the submitter that their form was rejected for reason X, Y, Z. You still have to go through the same thought process to be able to create things like that. So that's really what today was all about. And I encourage you to continue to explore kind of the skills that you've been exposed to today.